as you think. So, and to bring on our next presenters in that light, we have one of our main primary resources that's across the country, nationwide. It doesn't matter where you live, you should be able to have access to your Natural Resource Conservation Agency, and that's NRCS, okay? Starting with our
Hi, I just want to give you a little preview about our agency. We're under the big umbrella of USDA, which has over 170 years of experience, and we're NRCS and we're pushing 80. So, we are experienced. We're not new people to Pembroke. We have been in Pembroke for a very long time, and it's up to you to utilize us or not. The office is in wherever that. Right? Yeah. And so I'm going to, no further ado, because we are running behind schedule. We have the district conservationist, Trenton.
That's me.
And then we have the soil conservationist here, who is acting district conservationist, but is really out of airport, Solomon Andrews.
Who here has heard of NRCS? I know a few of you have been in talk with me before, but the basis of our agency is solely based around conservation planning and addressing particular resource concerns, whether it be soil erosion, crop health, animal health, grazing. Those are all things that we have set standards and specs on practices to address problems that can be associated with those types of operations. So conservation planning is the first step in most of what we do, and then we do have financial assistance programs that can be used to help offset the cost of implementing the conservation type program or practices. And so I'll go through the slideshow and outline not everything, but a good portion of what we do. Alright. The EQIP program stands for the Environmental Quality Incentive Program. Through this presentation, you see, since we're the government, we have acronyms for everything. And so that's one of the main ones. That's kind of the bread and butter of our agency. That's where a majority of our conservation gets applied with a variety of different types of farms. And those are four different land uses that we cover: cropland, grazing land, confined livestock operations, and forest land. And some of the things I'll go through, it may not pertain to your particular farms, but I just want to give everybody an idea of what practices we do cover in case there's an operation somewhere else that you know about and you can pass it along. And then I'll touch base on another program. It's called the Conservation Stewardship Program, or CSP. So, like I said before, the basis of everything we do is around conservation planning. And it's a good conservation plan is kind of building a house. Everything's kind of set in stone, so you have an idea of what's coming up next, what to expect, and how to do it. So a conservation plan is a written record of the practices that are needed on your farm, how and when you might do them. And the way to develop a conservation plan follows a 9-step planning process that covers from A to B what we need to do. So step 1 is identifying, that walking around on your farm, it'll be easy to start identifying problems, whether you see, you know, a spot where the water is washing away, it's creating gullies or something like that. And then, so if your plant condition is deteriorating, there's a lack of wildlife presence, you know, your pasture is not where you want it to be. Those are all things that are considered resource concerns. And then figuring out what your objectives are. You know, there's kind of objectives to be long-term sustainability of your land, you know, overall profit margins, things like that. It doesn't have to be something specific. It can be pretty broad. Inventorying your resources. In this step, appropriate natural resource, economic and social information is collected. And it'll help you to define the problems that are in the future of the farm and what opportunities might be available to fix them. Information pertaining to soils, plants, animals, the structures on the property, the type of labor that you have available, types of equipment limitations that you have. You know, because sometimes a practice that we would suggest might not be feasible for somebody that doesn't have enough equipment or labor available. Analyzing the resource data that you gathered in step 3 is very important. You use this information to define the existing conditions, and then analyzing cause and effect scenarios for the different options. Step 5, formulating alternatives, because what we think is the best plan may not be the best plan. So you can come up with alternatives that include some or all the practices that are available, or you can just pick and choose the ones that are going to work best for your farm. Evaluating each alternative from the development step 5 are important to addressing the client's objectives as well as any of the natural resource concerns that are present. And then, not finally, but making a decision on which alternative is going to work best is step 7. You select an alternative that will best serve your operation with the resources that you've got available to you. Step 8 is implementing that plan. So once you figure out everything that you want to do, you got to start to do it. You know, and we provide technical assistance. We have standards and specs that outline basically the ins and outs of every practice that we suggest and that we will put into your conservation plans. For example, if any of the practices require engineering work, we have those on staff that do design drawings. Me and Solomon are both conservation planners. We can do practice guidance for any of the vegetative or the management type practices. And then step 9 is evaluating the plan. After you've started it and after it's completed, you want to look back and see whether it accomplished the goals that you were looking for and what in the future needs to be changed, if anything. So this is an example of a conservation plan. I mean, it's going to, or a conservation plan map. It's going to show a property. It's going to outline, you know, any structures or buildings that are on there, where there might be which practices are going to go in which location. And this is all something that we can provide.
This looks like my field.
Oh, close. So what's in a conservation plan? When we start to write it, we're going to look at everything that you do, whether it be your tillage, your cropping system, the history, what you want to do in the future. We're going to look to see if there's any natural resource concerns such as gullies, any spots where you've got sediment or nutrients entering waterways, any spots where there's a lack of wildlife and you'd like to improve the habitat, and then any other general natural resource concerns. The best part about these plans are they're free. It's a service that our agency provides to any farmers out there, and it's your plan. It's up to you what you want in it. We have suggestions, but we're just there to help facilitate the plans to be written and then help implementation. And then having a plan improves your chances of getting funded through our other programs, which I'll talk about in just a minute. So that, like I said, the first step in everything we do is always conservation planning. We want to figure out what to do and how to do it, and then we can worry about the funding information later on. And then what's included in the plan, it's going to give you an idea of what our agency considers the practices to cost for implementation. They vary, but it's going to give you at least an idea. Are there any restrictions involved? Do you need to get a permit to put this in? Do you need to do a permit to do dirt work or something like that? And then if there's any highly erodible land on your property, or if there's any wetlands that need to be addressed in the middle of all this planning process. So, like I said here, these are our two major programs. EQIP provides cost share and other incentives for implementing conservation practices. Conservation Stewardship Program is basically a payment program for farmers and other operators that have been doing conservation practices on their own in the past and are willing to do an enhanced version of that in the future. So, EQIP, and some of you guys have been through this process with me so far, and then other ones, hopefully, after today, will come in and talk with me. EQIP is a continuous sign-up. Anybody can sign up. Any farming operations can come sign up at any time throughout the year. However, there's certain times a year that those applications are evaluated. So, somebody that, like Kamal, you applied in March of last year, but we're just now evaluating his application now because there's only certain times that we go through that part of the process. Approval is based on a competitive ranking process where you're competing against similar land use and operations. So, like a small organic grower is not competing against a large dairy. So you're going to compete against somebody else that's close to similar operations.
When you say competing, in what way?
Well, because the applications are all ranked. The ranking is based on the types of practices chosen, the amount of resource concerns that are being addressed, and a slew of different national, state, and local questions that are determined by offices in the state office, the region, and headquarters. So that all those questions, they're basically yes/no questions, and I go through and I rank it based on what's in your application, and then it spits out a number, and that number is competing against other growers in the area.
You're competing for the funding.
And competing for funding through EQIP. No, there's no guarantee on funding. It's going to be based on the application.
I have a question. Is this just funding for soil or for land, or is this for houses? Or
No, we are only on farmland. Our funding, there's other agencies through USDA that cover that type of stuff, but everything that we do is cost share for putting in conservation practices on agricultural land.
What about something like putting a pond in?
We have practices for doing farm ponds for livestock. Whether they're funded or not is not guaranteed. That's.
We do ponds if there's no other means of getting water to no other water resources. So let's say you don't have an active well or a stream or anything, then we can come out and design and do cost share ponds. But it's very rare to do that. So, but if there's no other way for you to get water to your
Oh, what do you really want? Wildlife and environment and dogs and things like that.
Okay, I think you can answer. We will come out to your property, to the land, and do the survey and whatever.
Oh,
Yeah.
This is free of cost.
Okay.
Yeah, we have engineers and technicians that can do that type of work.
Only thing you have to do is get somebody to design, construct it.
Okay.
That's the only thing you have to do.
What about an old existing pond that kind of washed in and, erosion? So something like that could be,
Is that the only water resource out there?
whatever,
We could. This is probably a case-by-case evaluation. So, but we still can come out there and look at it. There's no problem. So it's case-by-case. So if you can get in contact with Trenton will have an engineer come down and look at it for you. And then we will look at it and see what we can do for you.
What do you think about cost share?
Okay, the way that our programs are set up, so just for example, say you wanted to apply for and you do get funded, you go through the application process, your application is one of the ones that gets selected. We would put in the conservation plan, so say September of this year, you're going to plant ryegrass. You would plant it, and then after you would call me and say, hey Trent, I planted this, I followed your standard specs on seeding dates, rates, germination percentages, everything like that. And then you'll bring me a seed tag and we'll go over, kind of make sure it's growing and germinating, and then we will turn around and pay you after that. So you're in charge as the participant, you're in charge of putting in the practice and then coming and telling me, and I come out and check it out to make sure that it was implemented satisfactorily, and then the payment happens. So it's not like a grant where the money comes up front and you put it in. It's a cost share incentive for you to put in this practice.
Oh, okay, so you're gonna get back what you put in there.
Well, you get back a percentage. I mean,
It roughly comes out to about 60%.
60.
We roughly cover about 60% of the cost.
yeah, and those numbers come. There's a state average on what they expect it to cost to put in these practices, and then they take a percentage of that, and that's what our payments are based on. So I mean, say you can put them in cheaper than what we think you can, then that doesn't matter. You don't get less money, you get a set amount.
If we had to check in with you before the fact, before we put your practice in.
You don't have to. I mean, we're going to be in touch because you're going to have a conservation plan. But if you have questions on whether you're using the right seed or you're going to put this in the right spot, or it's
So you have to have
call
a
me
plan
because
first. You just can't come along and say, I put it in.
no, yeah, you got to be
in the system.
Yes.
And get approved.
Yeah, and you got to get approved. That's
Right.
the big step.
And then you go put your practice in the practice and they'll compensate.
Yeah. Yes. And I'll go over some of that here in a minute.
There's a question.
Yes.
I was just wondering if there's a list, and I'm sure
Oh,
there's
yeah.
a list of
We have lots of
what
lists.
you.
Yeah, I didn't bring them here because it's a huge document, but I can get that to anybody that wants one.
It's online.
Yeah, and you can look online for available practices. I mean, I don't know if we can they look up what's funded this year? I don't think so. Well, which practices are paid for? Because we have practices that are not paid for, but there's guidance for all of them. So some of them are just kind of advice on how to do this the right way, and then some other ones in your application we can help pay for, and some others. But it's all case by case. I mean, it's up to you. It's like I said, it's your guys' conservation plan. I mean, if you don't like it, take it out. All right. So these contracts can be written for up to 10 years if there's enough practices to allow that. I mean, we don't write, if you have one practice in your contract, we don't give you 10 years to do it. But, so that's our maximum amount of years. Here's a list of the typical practices that I see come through my office in Kankakee County. Nutrient management, which is basically a management plan that helps determine the type of fertilizers and such that are going to come on. It might not work out so well for all the organics because it's kind of based on using commercial fertilizers. I don't know if we might have something for the small farmers. There's a specialty program. Seasonal high tunnels, that's real big. I mean, that's going to be something that most of you guys will be interested in. Strip till, no-till, field borders, cover crops, any type of erosion control, waterways, terraces, structures, drainage, water management, and windbreaks, planting grasses, plugging abandoned wells, etc. I mean, most of you guys know what the seasonal hot tunnels are, correct? They're bedded, or hoop houses. We just have a fancier name for them. Or poly houses. It depends. I've heard them called all different sorts of names. Basically, it's a temporary structure, or not temporary, but it's a soft-sided structure with metal hoops and plastic stretched over the top. I've got pictures of them later on.
What's the strip till?
Strip till is where using precision agriculture, farmers are putting their fertilizer in a straight line, and then they're planting their crop in the exact same line as what the fertilizers are going in. So instead of broadcasting the fertilizer everywhere, they're just using a specific spot. All right. So yeah, I do cover this. This is one of the things that they've offered this year under the nutrient management for specialty crops. Instead of paying a certain dollar per acre like we do with the large conventional farms, we're paying a certain dollar amount for each nutrient management plan that's written for the small growers. So that it's to defray costs of soil sampling, manure and compost analysis, and consultation services that you might hire to help come up with these types of plans. And for that, what I do with the payments on my presentation is the ones that are not in, we have two different rates. One of them for the historically underserved and socially disadvantaged farmers, and then one for conventional. The conventional one is not, the payment is not in parentheses. So for those nutrient management plans, we're paying $1,253, and then for the socially disadvantaged farmers, we're paying just over $1,500. And those nutrient management plans can be written by my office as a part of your conservation plan.
You said can be written by?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can write those.
They write the plans out for you.
Okay, I got it.
And then your implementation is what gets paid for. So we'll give you the plan and tell you how and when to put the fertilizers on, and then you'll get paid retroactively for it.
So you're paying for what? The analysis, or are you actually paying for the?
Well, you know, part of that for being the small growers is if you're getting your compost or manure and you're getting it tested to make sure it's reaching the right nutrient levels and things like that, that's going to cost money. And that's part of why we're paying this, is because that's going to offset some of that cost. All right, no-till, strip-till per acre, we pay $14.28 for conventional and $14 for the underserved. And it's a one-year practice. Most of our management practices are 1 year, because the goal with the management is we're going to pay you to do it once, and then hopefully after that you're going to see the benefit in it, and then you're going to continue to do it on your own. And it's got to be a change. If you already no-till that field, we don't want to pay you for something that's already done, because we're not fixing anything. It's already, you're already doing it the right way. It might be hard for organic producers because tillage is a big portion of weed control and things like that, especially if you're doing cover crops and you're not using herbicides to terminate them. So cover crops is one of the ones that I got a lot of interest about in recent time. So we're paying for cover crops. They can include grasses, legumes, and forbs. Basically anything that remains growing over winter or during times when your ground's normally fallow. I mean, keeping something growing on your ground is going to help reduce erosion from wind and water. It'll improve the soil organic matter and make your ground more fertile. The capturing, recycling, and redistributing nutrients allows it to keep from leaching down into the groundwater or running off on surface water. Improvement in biodiversity, suppressing weed growth, managing your soil moisture, and minimizing and reducing soil compaction. All things that will help grow a better crop. And the criteria for implementing this through our program is we need to know what plant species you want to do, the rate in which you planted, when you planted it, and the depth of planting will be determined using the Illinois Cover Crop Selection Tool, which is run through this website. It's a really good website that you can go to and put in what your goal is, whether it's to stop erosion, to build up, to scavenge nitrogen or something like that, and it'll tell you which crops or which cover crops will achieve that goal, and it'll tell you when to plant it, and it'll give you seeding dates and things like that. And that's where our guidance comes from. So we're not going to suggest something that doesn't show up on this website. And then terminating cover crops, it can be done by frost, mowing, tillage, crimping, or herbicides. Not burning it is one of the stipulations. And then you do that prior to planting your primary crop in the spring.
Let me add on. One of the main benefits of cover crops is to help produce organic matter. And as long as you got good organic matter in the soil, it's going to help your crops grow better. So that's a main benefit of planting cover crops. So it's a good idea to plant cover crops. You got to do it already. And like I said, we'll pay roughly like $6 season for planting cover crops. So
Well, and especially with the sand that's here, cover crops are almost a necessity to keep your soil where it's at, because this is just a unique part of the landscape in central Illinois that you don't see anywhere else, and it'll blow. You guys have seen it.
Question.
I have a
Yes.
question, and I hope this really does, I'm trying to get this understanding. I have land and there's nothing there, so before I put anything there, I come to you guys and ask you to check over my land and see. Okay.
Yeah.
Then you will write up a proposal that I need to do to work with that land.
Well, it'll be a plan to address any of the resource concerns that are
Right.
present.
And then you will take that plan and I will be competing with someone else that
If
may
you
have
wanna-
similar.
There's a difference between a plan and an application.
Okay.
A plan is for your farm. It's just basically technical advice from us.
Okay.
But if you want help paying for the plan,
Uh-huh.
you apply.
Okay.
And then that application will compete against other applications.
Okay. Yeah. And then if it goes through, I would pay 60% of, no.
You pay 100% up
I
front,
pay
and then we'll
100%,
reimburse a
and
certain
you'll
percentage
reimburse.
back. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Ash,
Yeah.
One other question.
Yes.
One other question specifically related to the cover crop.
Okay.
Is this saying that after you've gone through the plan and you've planted everything, and now you're at the end of the season, then you put down grass seeds so that it's germinating in the winter?
Yep.
And then when the spring comes up, then
Kill
you
it.
mow it down, kill it
Yep.
or whatever?
Yeah.
Just don't burn it?
Yeah. I mean, that's just one of the things in our standard says that as far as following our standards and getting payment from us, you can't light it on fire.
Okay.
Probably not just a safety issue. But any of these other ways to kill it are acceptable by our standards.
Trent, just add, we're not going through with you all the details about cover cropping, which is a whole nother class session in itself. And it's a wonderful thing. If you all see any programs out there that's going to cover cover cropping and some of those details, I suggest definitely get in on it.
Yeah.
And go to those classes specifically geared towards cover cropping. And then, so we're dealing with the seed, the specialty crops that we're talking about growing now. You may have more land, but if you only want to take a half of your acre and try to make a profit, and you have another 2, 3, 4, 5 acres left that you really just don't have the time to deal with, put it in cover crop. Cover it.
Yeah, you don't want to leave it open.
Don't leave it open, and then next year you might expand your garden area into those cover crop areas, and it'll be well fertilized.
Well, but one thing with the cover crops is termination absolutely needs to be done before that plant
Yes.
seeds, because it goes from a cover crop to a weed quickly, and it's hard to control, especially without using herbicides. So then the payments this year have been significantly increased for covering cost share, and this is the one management practice that we allow more than 1 year. We'll pay up to 3 years on the same property for putting in cover crops. So if you plant something that is a chemical or mechanical termination species, we're paying $58 for the conventional and $70 per acre for the underserved applications. And that would be like your annual ryegrass, zero rye, buckwheat, anything that you've got to either spray or disc under to kill it in the spring. Winter kill species are something that a lot of people are interested in because the management is a lot less. But my opinion is that the benefit is not as good as what it is with some of those other ones. But oats, radishes, they will die in the winter, so you don't have to do anything in the spring for it. But seeding with those is better earlier in the year than what some of these other ones are. So you have to determine which one fits your operation better. Two species mix, mixing 2 or more species of grasses, legumes, forbs, or other plants, it goes up to $69 to $82. 3 species mix, $74 to $88. And then organic goes all the way up to $122 an acre, or almost $150 an acre. And that is for any of the applications that qualify under our rules as being organic applications. And you have to be using organic seeds. So the big numbers, because the organic cover crop seeds are a lot more expensive. No, go ahead.
Okay, well, if you're not concerned about reaching
What's that?
Mold.
You want to mow it down?
No, there's
Mold.
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 Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, M-O-L.
yeah.
What about those?
Wait, I mean, I don't know what your question is.
How do you get rid of those?
Oh, I have no idea.
That is his job description.
We don't deal with animal pests.
Okay.
We're vegetative. That's an axe, maybe? I don't know. So in order for payment to be, and the practice to be approved and certified as being correct, I need to see an invoice showing the amount of seed purchased. That helps me determine whether or not you use the correct seeding rate on the amount of acres that you have. The method of planting, whether you broadcast, aerial seeded, or drilled, or planted it, that changes the amount that we suggest that you plant. So I need to know that. When you planted it, because we have strict seeding dates. If we say the seeding date for oats and radishes is September 10th, and you bring me a receipt on September 20th, then we can't pay for it that year, and it's considered not satisfactory. Seed tags help us to determine whether or not they were viable seeds, because the government doesn't want to be paying money for seeds that are junk and going in the ground and not growing. So that's very important. I mean, the easiest thing for me to do is you just hand me a seed tag and an invoice, and then I do the rest of the work.
And this is true because I just had it done.
Yep.
Just had it done and actually made $100 over, but I invested in it.
Yeah. Yeah, you got a good deal on that seed, I think.
Absolutely. It was a good price on the organic seed.
Yeah.
The tag is a receipt.
The tag that comes on the bags, the bag of seed.
And all seeds come with they tell you what the germination rate is, what amount of seeds in there are considered hard seed or weed seeds, things like that.
Does the organic rate apply to transitioning to organic farming?
Yes. Yes. That I don't remember if I put that in there or not, but there's 3 different ways to apply, and they can be conventional, organic, or organic transition. And the rules for transitioning to organic are basically you have to be in the process of you have to be starting the process of becoming a certified organic producer. And so then you get to apply under there's a certain fund code. That gets complicated, but you would be competing against like applications, so other organic transition farmers, which in Illinois there's not very many of them. That are coming through our offices. All right, so another one that gets a lot of attention is seasonal high tunnels. They're structures that are used to cover crops to extend the growing season. It improves plant soil quality, reduces nutrient and pesticide transportation outside of that area so they're not drifting, they're not leaving the area, and then reducing your energy use. Seasonal high tunnels, they go, they must be grown in soil, can't be grown on benches and tables or in pots. It can be a raised bed, but it has to be in the ground. It can't be, we're not paying for basically greenhouse structures, we're paying for high tunnels over your normal crop field. Or low tunnel, we're not paying for low tunnel systems that cover single rows. It has to be installed on land that you're already growing crops on. You can't be breaking out a new portion of your farm and putting a high tunnel there. It's got to be somewhere where you're already farming. And then it can't be a homemade structure.